hey everyone, we've got a brand new sponsor.
BagsUnlimited.com.
BagsUnlimited.com has a huge catalog of vinyl supplies, from record sleeves to storage boxes to cardboard mailers, record bags, and more. Whether you're just starting your collection or you're already the biggest record shop in the state, you can buy your vinyl supplies direct at BagsUnlimited.com.
And now, on with the show. Welcome to The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for record collectors and music nerds. Here's your host, the biggest record nerd of them all, Nate Goyer.
Well, hey everyone, it's Nate. Welcome to episode 448 of The Vinyl Guide, the podcast for and by and to collectors of vinyl records and you music nerds. And I gotta tell you, a rough week. Mr. Steve Albini passed. I'm sure you all know that. We threw up a replay of our interview with Steve, and it was good to hear that again. We also, unfortunately, recently uploaded a Wayne Kramer interview. Same situation. A friend of the show passed too early. I'm very proud of those. I got a lot out of those conversations, so hope you do as well. But despite what's happened with Steve and everyone, we got a great episode today. We really do. Joe Nelson, who's a familiar face in the music community, is co-founder of Trust Records. Trust Records is a reissue label for many classic punk albums, including Circle Jerks, Group Sex and Wild in the Streets, 7 Seconds The Crew, DFL's My Crazy Life, and recently SSD, The Kids Will Have Their Say. However, Trust isn't like other reissue labels. They develop a partnership with the bands to preserve the music, and they represent each release with extended booklets containing pictures, essays, and highlighting the importance of these releases with perspective of their times. They really look to bring an air of authenticity, and they work with the artist to ensure that these classic albums are represented in the way the artist would like them to be enjoyed from this point forward. And also, Trust does some amazing work on the aesthetics, the vinyl variants. They do remastering and ensure that the records are sounding brilliant. And they also keep their prices quite moderate so everyone can enjoy. So today, I talked to Joe all about the Trust Records label, their mission, their principles, the stories, the complexities, and also what's coming up. Lots of releases in 2024 from Trust Records, which Joe speaks about today. And there were a few we spoke about privately, and hot damn people, there is some great stuff coming up. Now, I'm not going to tell a damn soul what he told me, so don't try to ply it out of me with beers and tacos. Well, you're welcome to try, but you're not likely to get very far. Anyway, I also want to let you know there is an extended version of this conversation only for our Patreon supporters, patreon.com/vinylguide. Help support the shows, get the extras, get commercial-free episodes, and more. Patreon.com/vinylguide is where you want to go for that, and we do appreciate it. And finally, if you're new to the Vinyl Guide podcast, just follow us in your podcast app of choice. It's free. We've got over 440 episodes and interviews, including the likes of, like I said, the late Steve Albini and Wayne Kramer. But we also have lots of folks that we are lucky to still have amongst us, like punk stalwart Keith Morris, episode 442, Buzz Osborne of Melvins, episode 444, John Densmore of The Doors, episode 433, Matt Cameron from Soundgarden and Pearl Jam, episode 425, Peter Hook talks about the Records of Joy Division, episode 412, Jody Stevens of Big Star, episode 405, Jay Mascis of Dinosaur Jr. talks records, episode 393, and loads more. Just follow the Vinyl Guide podcast in your podcast app and enjoy them episodes for free anytime. All right, enough from me solo. Let's have a chat with Joe Nelson about preserving punk and the history and future of Trust Records.
There we are.
Joe!
Hey, man, how are you?
I'm good. Happy Friday in your neck of the woods.
Yeah, thanks for doing this. I'm excited to be part of it.
Oh man, well look, I've always wanted to have you on, and I know we've communicated in the past. Our paths have always just kind of missed each other, so
right.
I'm glad we're correcting that. Thanks for coming on the show. I gotta say, Trust Records is continuing to just really swing for the fences and hit some fantastic releases. Congratulations on that,
Thank
man.
you. I mean, it means a lot coming. I mean, you're obviously an expert in the world we're traversing. So I appreciate it.
Careful there.
Well, I'm just saying, like, I know podcast, I know you. So it's like, that means a lot. I appreciate the words. It's been a journey, for sure.
But it's only been a handful of years too, right? I mean, Trust started early 2020s, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's a weird label because we started during the pandemic, right? Of all times to start a label. And so, yeah, 2020, end of 2020 was Circle Jerks Group Sex, and it's now 2024. So yeah, about 3-4 years we've been doing it.
Mm-hmm. And what led you to this? You've got a history of, music marketing and working in different capacities around music. Did you ever get involved or ever think you would own a label?
No, I mean, like, I guess we're recording, right? We're live.
We're going. If
I love
it's okay
how
with
this
you.
I'm like, okay, I logged on. We're right into it. I love
Surprise!
it. Yeah, I appreciate this. Let's get into it. Yeah, I'm a music lover, man. Like, my whole life has been music since the time I was a teenager and a child into my career as an adult. I worked for record labels in my 20s, Revelation Records, worked for Victory Records. That didn't pan out when I went to music merchandising, which I did for about 20 years. I never thought I would come back to a record label, let alone like a legacy punk rock hardcore label.
Mm-hmm.
Never thought about it. I just did my merch business. And then it, like, the way the origin of Trust Records, Matt Pincus, who's the co-founder with me and really the benefactor of he's really the financial backing of the label. He came to me with the idea 2018, and we hatched it out. We just once he presented me with the idea of, like, we're in our third act of life, we'll say, let's come full circle and give back to the people who got us in the music business, the people in that genre of music we're celebrating. I mean, they put both of us on a path of music. Like, I wouldn't be anywhere without Ian MacKaye and Henry Rollins and HR and Al Baril and Keith Moore. You know what I mean? Like, it just, at the age I was at as a child, like, that music and those guys, like, got me through that shit and put me on a pathway of a passion for love of music that gave me a career and gave Matt a career. And so once we kind of put it to me that way, we started working on it. I didn't think it would be a full-time thing. It's becoming a full-time thing now. But at the time we were like, yeah, we'll put out some records every year. We'll try to, like, do some good work. But we've had conversations in 2024 that you will see, like, we're going to take Trust Records to a different level. And by 2025, it'll be a full-time 8 to 10 release records a year, trying to do the quality we're doing it. So it's about ready to take a next step. And it's exciting. Yeah, I never thought about it. You're right. But if you're doing music, like anyone, like you do your stuff, like, no one's ever doing it for money or, I never look at it like that. It's just like, I love it. So then the fact that we're going to make it something where this is what I'm going to do full time, and I'm not going to do a merchandise business anymore, which that's what I do usually make my money. Like, it's going to be really exciting for me and for people who like Trust Records, I think, next year.
Yeah. No one's getting rich off
punk
labels. No one's getting rich off podcasts. You do it for the passion. If you're doing it for money, you're in the wrong fucking, go to 100%. Study finance or something.
Like I think I kind of came to a peace within myself recently where I was like, you know what? I have a pretty good life. I don't have to chase money anymore. Like, I don't really have to, because before, when I'm in my merch business, you're like, okay, how do I make this and this and this? And it's all money. And then with this label and kind of music in general, like, it's nice to be at a peace with it where you're like, I'm just doing it because I love it and I love music. And now I do a record label full time. Like, great. All I do is listen to music, talk to guys like you. It's great. That's more rewarding than the money. Like, it's the camaraderie and the relationships.
Yeah. Well, you and I are pretty much kind of the same age. I can say our hair is about the same color there.
A little bit. Yeah.
Same shade of gray.
Yeah.
And, a couple of years ago, I could see the end at some point, At
Right.
some point, the end gets closer than the beginning. And, you want to start thinking about your legacy. You want to start thinking about, what am I going to leave here? And maybe those of us who are fortunate to be able to say, I think I'm going to be all right. Let me now divert some of my attention from supporting my family to giving back.
Yeah.
being able to put stuff back out there, which is kind of what the podcast here is. And clear,
Yeah,
it sounds
I
like
agree.
that's what trust is for you.
What we're about. So I think it's about like, the music we're talking about. I always look at like Ian MacKaye and Discord. Ian MacKaye's lived this life that's amazing, never wavered, never chased money, never chased anything but the love of music. And that consistency, like, Tortoise and the Hare, the people ran in front of him, like went for the gold. They're now obsolete. But here's Ian MacKaye and Discord still plugging along, putting out great music and stuff. We always look at him and that label as like, what would Ian do? What would Discord do? And yeah, I'm with you, man. You come full circle in life and you start looking at what it matters. And what matters is I love music. I'm 53 years old. I love music. I'm fortunate enough to work in that space,
So,
and don't take it for granted.
The one thing that also strikes me about Trust Records, and being a record nerd myself, I'm assuming you have tendencies, if not strong allegiances, into that world. Yeah,
I got a lot of records.
Okay, we'll get into those soon. But the thing about Trust to me is, this is one of the few labels where I prefer the reissues above my originals. I like
nice.
I like the originals because they were from the era and whatnot, but they're not only the manufacturing. Of course, they were made at places like Rainbow Records and whatnot. That quality was not job one, but also the booklet, the package, the reverence that Trust puts in these releases is phenomenal. So talk to me a little bit about arriving at that point, because you're not selling Trust records for $60, $70. They're extremely affordable, $30, $40, something like that. But they come with so much more material, so much more work and care, and manufacturing goes into it. Tell me about that decision.
Well, so that's, I mean, I'm glad you brought up. So we started, so it's a reissue label. So we work in kind of an 80s, 90s genre of punk rock and hardcore right now. And it was very conscious decision, is like, we kind of modeled our label after Folkways, which is the Smithsonian's folk label, and how the Folkways went and collected this old folk music and put together with some context that when the releases came out, you understood who the people were and there was a history behind it. So you had kind of, and it became more of an historical Smithsonian's label. So it's a historical label. We want to do that with what we're doing. So I was looking at it like, okay, Circle Jerks is our first release. Group Sex, it's a classic punk rock, American punk rock release. And it's been around, still was in print forever. So it's not like we want to do like, well, here it is on green vinyl now. We were like, what's important is to make this an historical work and show context so that in 50 years, if someone buys the Trust Records version of Circle Jerks, they can read about the Circle Jerks and they can understand what was happening in the culture, in the country, in our society, and then why this music kind of makes sense for that time. Because on its own, if you don't know anything about the Circle Jerks and you pick it up, you'd be like, what? This is crazy. What is this? You have to understand, you have to look at it like, I want someone who's never doesn't know what punk rock is or hardcore is or the Circle Jerks to pick up that record and have an understanding of what it is and why it's cool. So that was always the thought. If we're going to do re-releases, yes, we're going to remaster them. Yes, we're going to try to chase down the source tapes and make sure they're clean and try to do the remastering from the original source tapes. But also the photographs and the packaging and the storytelling is really, really important to this music because it all kind of goes hand in hand together, and so it's very conscious. And obviously we want to be affordable. We didn't want to put out records that were $80, $100 that, kids can't afford. We want to be able to walk into a record store and get a record for $30 and it comes with these packages and these bells and whistles and still, it's still a work in progress. We're still trying to find out the sweet spot of what makes sense economically and what's, what I mean? Like our first records were we didn't make much money on them because they were such a labor. They were so packed with stuff. And then we were trying to sell for $25. So, it's still work in progress, but that'll never change. Anything that comes out in Trust Records in a physical format will always have some sort of deluxe version and some sort of packaging, with the one exception being that SSD record we recently put out.
Oh, okay. Why was that the exception?
Because the band didn't want that record not been in print for 40 years, and it was such a rare record, and the band felt it would be cool to just have it as a remastered straight release. Now, what we did with that is we tweaked the covers a little bit. So we made some collectible stuff out of it, but we didn't put any booklet in there. And I should back up a little bit. They also put out their own book at the same time we were releasing that record. So that made it kind of weird. But what we did instead is we spent a lot of money in storytelling behind the scenes. So like there's a documentary about that band, SSD, coming out in about a month. So we were like, okay, we can't really put the bells and whistles we do into this packaging, but what we'll do is spend that same money on a really cool documentary that highlights the band's about 30-minute, 25-minute documentary. And that's what we'll do. Because at the end of the day, like we're just trying to get, the word out of why this is cool. And at the end of the day, as the label, we always defer to the artist. So if an artist came to me and was just like, I just want to do it the way it was, I would be okay with it. I would then do what I did with SSD and go, okay, how do we find a different way to tell this artist's story? Because we're very conscious of this is their work and we want to honor their vision. We have our own ideas, but if at the end of the day, like they want to do whatever they want to do, we're going to back,
Right. So the label kicked off with Circle Jerks Group Sex, yeah?
Yeah.
And that's a very important step there, the first release.
Very great first step to have Keith be that guy for us, yes.
How did that happen for you?
It's interesting, man. So Matt and I Pincus had talked about this label for about a year and a half of how we wanted to do it and starts and stops. We met with other labels to buy. Didn't really get anywhere with stuff. I mean, people didn't want to be the first domino because it was such a new concept of what we were presenting this fresh concept of joint venture partnerships with the artists to do what I've just talked about. And I do music merchandising for a living, or I had up until recently. And I got a call for the Circle Jerks were getting back together. They were going to do a reunion. And this was like 2019, actually. And I was like, okay, would I come meet with the band to talk about merchandising and how, because I was like honored to, like, what a great, sure. So I sat down with their people and we started talking about merchandising. And in that conversation, they said they had their masters back for Group Sex and Wild in the Streets. And they were going to re-release them. They were licensing them. And I was just like, whoa, time out. Like, what if we did this? And I just pitched them the trust thing about groups, and Keith Morris, to his credit, being the trailblazer maverick that he's always been, was like, yes, let's do that. I'll take, and obviously we paid for them. It wasn't, we want to honor, part of our mission also is like, we want to make sure the creators are compensated for their art financially. They never were before, but it was like we talked about earlier. They never went into music to make money. They went into for the fun of it or to create. So that was never a priority until, you go down the road. Circle Jerks Group Sex probably sold like 200, 300,000 copies, maybe more. It's hard to tell. And they hadn't been really compensated for that. So we made a really fair deal to him and he was excited. And once, I've said it before, once you had Keith Morris out there waving your flag, like other people took notice. And it was just a great first step for us. And they had already kind of been thinking how we were thinking about how to re-release Group Sex with that booklet. So they'd already done some of the work. Where I was able to help is I was able to come in and broker deals. They didn't have rights to the photographers. Glennie Freeman, Ed Culver, these famous photographers had been burned so many times in the past by people that they weren't willing to cooperate. And then I was able to kind of bridge that together with them to say, hey, like, we will pay you. And we have. And now both those photographers are dear friends and we work on, but it was just kind of restarting that conversation with some of these people. And then with Group Sex also, like, getting the analog tapes, digitizing. They were going to, I think, do it off a CD. And we were like, no way, man. Like, let's spend the money. Let's do this. Right. So we had a guy named Pete Lyman, who was their friend, remaster. He's a great mastering guy. That was such a fun record to be our first record. It was so awesome to be like, okay, our first effort is Circle Jerks Group Sex. Here we are. We're a punk rock, hardcore reissue legacy label. And our first record is Group Sex by Circle Jerks.
So there's a lot there. One of the things that fascinates me about this is the first record off the label. You're essentially asking the band to be the first monkey you shoot in the space.
The guinea pig, yes.
Yeah.
I know.
And then you have this whole new model, right? So,
right.
And these are people, I don't think I'm speaking out of turn here. These are people who've been, kicked around, cheated out of money and opportunities and things. They're naturally suspicious.
Yes.
So you come in and you pitch this what is kind of almost a hippie nirvana of record labels, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's got to be quite an interesting dance to get through.
It is. It's kind of weird though. Like we had these meetings with many other artists that had turned us down and labels. Keith got it. Like there's something about Keith and I when we sat down and we just kind of clicked, and he really understood what we were doing for and really got excited about it, about being, like to his credit, like taking a chance on something where the obvious thing that they were going to do is they were going to license it to like, I don't know if Epitaph would have done it, but they were going to, that's probably the thinking.
Label X or whatever.
Yeah.
Right?
Like we'll just license it. It'll be a thing. But our kind of idea is making almost like a collective of this music and this scene and kind of bringing everyone into together. It really appealed to Keith, I think, to who he is as a person of like, this is all about community and this is all about, giving back. And he understood Matt Pincus and I's pitch. We went to dinner with him to give this pitch, and he understood Matt Pincus, the co-founder of this, isn't looking to make money on it. I mean, we don't want to lose money, but Matt had made money. He had done his other ventures. He's a businessman making, doing $100 million deals. So Trust Records is a labor of love for him and for me. So we looked at the keys like, look, you're safe. We got money to put into this. We'll do things that other labels won't do. We'll make music videos. We'll do documentaries. We'll spend the money because at the end of the day, it's all just going back to the artist and the late. Like there's no, now that we've kind of redone my deal, like I'll make a salary for once, but like, it was never about that. Like it was always about like, almost like a nonprofit. Like this is just all about the community. For some reason it clicked with Keith and thank God it did, because all those people who kind of were turning us down were calling as soon as the Circle Jerks record came out. And we're like, hey, remember you talked to us? And I was like, yeah, I do,
Yeah. Well, that's it, because we haven't talked about this yet, but as I understand, Trust Records does retain a majority ownership of the recordings, right? So Circle Jerks had just gotten their masters back, and then they're going straight back into an agreement.
Yeah, a purchase agreement, which is I'm with you on that. It doesn't, from their side, like I would have been very suspect and leery to do that right away. I would have probably said like, hey, let's just circle back in a couple of years after we've done this. But I just think he wanted to take a chance. And like so our whole model is, because we go in and we buy 51% ownership. That's what we pitch. Like, we don't want to take over all 100%. We want to have the artists as partners, we don't want to be those guys. We're not looking to make a portfolio of assets. We're looking to celebrate the music. And the only way we looked at to do it is to try to make it a 50-50 partnership. The only reason we want that 1% is we don't want to get into situations as we're getting older where, it goes into estates or there's conflict, or then there's we don't want stuff to go into purgatory because there's an argument of who is actually the majority owner of something. So we asked for the 1% to administrate it. And I think that we're not looking to, if you have, and I explained to these artists, like if our goal is to say have 100 releases, right? If you have 100 different releases that are 49% partnerships, good luck selling that to anybody, because no one, you know what I mean? Because you're going to have to do all these deals. And at the end of the day, those guys still are protected. Because let's say we did go, so that's not our plan, but let's say I went and was, okay, we sold Trust to whoever. They're still 49% owners of the masters. It's still, they still get 49% of the revenue from $1. So it's a good fair deal. And I just think like I said, like there was something about Keith Morris getting it. But why wouldn't he, man? He's one of the founders of hardcore with Black Flag. Like, of course, he thinks differently than a normal person. Nor I'm not saying normal person, but he thinks differently than other musicians might, because he's looking at like what's cool and new and fresh. What's a different approach to doing this than I've done in the past. And I think he's understood it. And I he's just been we've become dear friends, and it's been awesome. To have him be like, he's like our ambassador. Like our whole thing, Matt and I, when our talk is like, well, whatever Keith wants to do, we're always going to do it. Like, he was the first one to take a chance. So whatever he brings to us, we'll always make sure, Keith, whatever you want.
He's a bit like punk rock Yoda.
Yeah, a little bit. He's a special human, man. He's just a neat cat.
So in terms of Circle Jerks and other bands you have, and I know there's a story with the SSD master tapes, and we can get into that in a bit, but have the master tapes and even the artwork been available? Hey there, audiophiles. If you're seeking stylish furniture to showcase your stereo and record collection, well, look no further than SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Sidetracked Workshop designs extraordinarily elegant record cabinets and consoles that add sophistication and panache to your music hobby. Handcrafted in the good old USA in the vinyl-loving city of Portland, Oregon, Sidetracked Workshop's designs are a music lover's dream, made with real walnut veneered wood and brass accents. These gorgeous designs add class and taste to the record room and ship fully assembled and ready to enjoy. Just check out the designs for yourself at SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Look, you spend thousands of dollars on records. Don't keep them in a crate, and don't risk your records on those feeble wooden pegs from IKEA. Your music deserves the dignity of Sidetracked Workshop. That's SidetrackedWorkshop.com. Elegant solutions for the vinyl lifestyle. Hey there, all you record nerds. I want to tell you about BagsUnlimited.com. BagsUnlimited.com has a huge selection of vinyl record supplies. Whether you collect LPs, 7-inch singles, 78 shellacs, or anything in between, BagsUnlimited.com will sort you out. From polyline sleeves to cardboard record mailers to 7-inch storage boxes and archive quality record sleeves, protect your records of any size and shape at BagsUnlimited.com. Whether you have a small personal record collection or you're running a massive record shop, you can grab a small supply or even buy in bulk at BagsUnlimited.com. And they've got some really incredible, unique stuff. BagsUnlimited.com even has special size sleeves made especially to protect your box sets, storage boxes and sleeves for cassette tapes, protective supplies for reel-to-reel, and yes, even 8-tracks. Just go to BagsUnlimited.com, click on audio supplies, and prepare to be impressed by all the options they have. That's BagsUnlimited.com. So, in terms of Circle Jerks and other bands you have, and I know there's a story with the SSD master tapes, and we can get into that in a bit, but have the master tapes and even the artwork been available? How difficult has that been to assemble and compile?
Well, it depends on the band. So Circle Jerks was fairly easy because the original record, Group Sex, was on Lisa Fancher's Frontier label for years. Lisa and I are good friends. That was part of the thing. There was a little bit of tension between her and them and the rights. I was actually able to come in, besides the photographers I mentioned, and broker an exit to her that I think made sense. And also Lucky Laird, the original drummer, there was some estrangement there. Lucky and I was able to sit down with Lucky and kind of, broker a deal that was fair to him. So that was kind of easier because there was some community already between us. Mm-hmm. We bought the BYO label. Bless you. We bought the BYO label, and the Stern brothers, Mark and Sean, they didn't have the art files properly saved, but they definitely had all the master tapes. And in this day and age with art recreation, we work with some real great artists. I mean, our whole thing is white glove treatment. So the artists we work with to recreate these labels, like whether it's Brian Ray Turcotte is a well-known graphic artist in our scene, like he's able to take records and put them back together just on the scans and stuff and make it look true. Technology's caught up to that on the art side. It wasn't always the case. You always get
grainy photo.
Grainy stuff.
You can tell it's a scan.
Yeah. That actually happened with the Aggression record we put out, where we got some of those dot matrices on the photos, which will drive me crazy for the rest of my life. But for the most part, we're able to recreate that stuff, and it depends. Like the tapes to me are the most important part. The sound, the audio is always the most important part. The art's important, but like being able to work on those master tapes, man, like if you can pull the audio from that and then remaster it from that, like it's going to be night and day. Because those records, even though they were recorded in such a lo-fi environment back in the day, the technology and mastering's improved so much that you really can take these records and build them up in the sound quality, so it's very thick and full and rich sounding, which was never always the case. Like, it drives me crazy when I go to listen to an old punk record that I like, and I can tell on like a streaming service is like a needle drop recording, or it's just a CD and it's so thin and the volume's low. And it's like, oh, that's not us. I'll tell you that.
Even the original pressings, back in the day, who was really spending a lot of time in the cutting the lacquers properly on some of these records? It was a quantity sort of conversation. Some engineer had to get through 12 of these a day, so he wasn't really paying a whole lot of attention on something like probably Walk Together, Rock Together. It was just another job for him.
And like The Crew is a perfect example of that. The 7 Seconds record, like that was a record recorded at a studio in LA that was a turn and burn metal studio, like with an engineer who didn't know anything about punk rock. It's a credit to the bands that they were so on point with their songs that they were able to get through that kind of experience recording them. Because, usually like you go into a studio, you got like a producer and you're fucking dicking around spending money. And punk rock, because there's no money in it, these guys are going recording 15 songs in a day, remixing or mixing them the next day. Like there's no goofing around. So the fact that they would come, that they've all come in so prepared for that, at the time when they recorded it, I guarantee you the engineers were like, what is this shit? Like, this sucks. Like, this isn't even music, because in 1983, it probably wasn't when you're recording a, Quiet Riot record or whatever you're fucking recording before. That's a different animal. And these studios, these engineers, that's what they would do. They would be engineers on like huge records, and then they'd be producers on the punk shit. So it's like after hours, like, okay, dude, like you can have this night and be a producer of this punk record, And so it's like, but you're not getting anything out of it. Like it's a rare that you get like a Don Zientara at Inner Ear that nurtures the bands and understands the process. In LA, that never happened. I mean, you had a guy named Chaz Ramirez down at a studio called Casbah that recorded early Social Distortion, early Orange County Punk. He got it. But a lot of these engineers are just like, it's like a fucking studio. It's like a day job. Like they're bummed they have to waste their time recording 7 seconds. So to your point, the recordings they're very quick and they're very lo-fi, and the mixing is kind of rough. It's, that's a dance with us too. We don't want to ever get into the remixing part of this, but like, man, I have those multi-tracks.
Do you have some?
Sure. A lot of multi-tracks, and I listen to them all the time going, man, should we remix this and see what it sounds like? Maybe we'll do something like that for a record store day, take a classic record and do what the Dead Kennedys did, have some like famous producer take a chance or a mixer remix it, but maybe not. I try to keep it true to the art.
Or share some of the stems and let people remix their own and see what they come up with.
That's a fun idea. That's a really good idea. That would be fun to have a project where here's the stems and do what you will. You can come download our shit and see what you got.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. Yeah. Look at that. Just came up with a great idea together.
All right, there we go.
I see that happening. I'll give you all full credit.
Oh, that's all right. I'd love to take a whack at those myself in Pro Tools.
Yeah, it's fun. Like I mean, and that's just pretty easy to mix because it's a lot of it's 8-track at the most, 16-track maybe.
You could almost have like a contest or a Spotify playlist with 40 different versions of Wild in the Streets, all from different mixers around the world.
Really interesting idea. We'll have to. Yeah, I love that idea, man. All right,
there we go. All right,
there we go. See, this has been productive.
We're only 25 minutes in. Maybe we got a few.
We
more.
We have a great idea. We always have $1 million ideas for 20 minutes.
So putting together these records, and again, the catalog of Trust Records is growing. I'm keen to hear what's kind of coming up next. So far, what's been the biggest pain in the ass one to pull together?
They're hard in a lot of ways because it gets frustrating, I think, for the artists and maybe for us at sometimes because these are, I always say to the bands, we get one shot at this. There's no rush. Don't stress out. There's no date you have to hit. There's no tour coming. I mean, a lot of these bands are still together. Look at it as like when we finally put it out there, that's it. Like there's no going back. So it'll take time. A perfect example of that is Stalag 13 in Control, which is a really great record, an important record to me and Matt. It's a band from Oxnard, California, from the early 80s, skate band. They have the singer Ron Baer is a dude of color, black dude. So that's rare in this kind of suburban punk rock shit to have that kind of perspective. It's taken a couple of years to get that record done. It comes out this summer finally. We just put it to bed. But that was one of those things too. Assets weren't all collected. I kept going back. Like there's not enough photos. Like let's just keep going through it until we find it. Let's keep going through the ideas until it's what you want. And I think they got frustrated because they were hoping it would come out last summer. And last summer I was like, you know, guys, let's like kick it to another year until we get it right. You know, because at the end of the day, like we don't have like, we're not like a normal record label. So we have like quarterly goals we need to hit sales wise. We're just trying to do the best quality work. Walk Together, Rock Together by 7 Seconds was a little like that too, where it was ready to go. And then I pulled it for about 4 or 6 months to kind of massage the assets of it, get better photos, you know, and that's important because if, you know, we're putting these books together and stuff, like it's frustrating. It always happens. Once these records come out, I get, you know, I always get some DM through Instagram or something from a guy going, oh shit, I have all these great photos. I wish I would have known. Like, yeah, I wish we would have known each other, but we're getting better at that because we're starting to connect with more people that way. So now, like, we have a record coming out next year, SNFU, and no one else wanted to play that we could have put out 2 years ago, but we've been gathering the assets for that because that's a big one and an important record for a lot of reasons, you know.
Wow. Okay. So SNFU, what else you have on the
so coming out this year. So we have the Stalag 13. Well, the next record to come out is SSD Get It Away, which is the other SS that comes out. We'll be announcing that in June, and that's got a bunch of fun stuff. There'll be some bonus things in there. Once again, there won't be the booklet, but we're doing that documentary about them, which will be a really cool look. And then,
by the way, you're good to announce these right now. This is okay.
Yeah.
I want to make sure.
I know what I'm doing. I got stuff I'm not announcing. I'm not. You didn't get me like that much. I know what I'm doing. So
sometimes people get very comfortable, and then we talk afterward. And I get a note that says, "Hey, can you pull that one bit?"
And then Stalag 13, and then Hepcat as a band that was on the BYO label. They're a great ska band. Original, well, they're not original ska, but their sound was traditional ska, early 90s. This is such a sad story, but it's going to be inspiring in the end. Is like the singer of that band, Greg Lee, and I have been working. When he came to me, he was very upset when BYO sold to us because, like a lot of bands, they want why can't we have our masters back? You know, why can't we just have them back? And I sat down with Hepcat at Punk Rock Bowling last year, which is a festival in Las Vegas. They were playing. And I sat with them and I said to Greg, who's the singer, I said, what's your dream for Hepcat? The Scientific goes, well, my dream is there's a producer called The Scientist. And anyone who knows music, The Scientist is a famous dub producer from Jamaica, worked with King Tubby, 70s, 80s guy. So I want that guy to make a dub record of this. And we have the stems. So I'm like, done. Hook us up. So we worked, Greg and The Scientist and I didn't do it. He did their record, a dub version of that record, a traditional dub record that's fucking awesome. And then what's so tragic is Greg Lee passed away about a month ago, 2 months ago, of a brain aneurysm. And it's so heartbreaking. He's the sweetest dude, just the best dude. What's lucky for us is before he passed away, we had signed off on the recording of that record. So I'm talking to Hepcat. That record comes out sometime, could be September, could be October, could be November, but that record will come out the way he wanted. It'll be a double record with a Scientist dub version and the original Hepcat thing. That'll be a special thing for people who know who those people are and care about Hepcat, and they don't. It'll just be really special. It's fucking tragic because I want him to be there for it, but that's happened to me a couple times now where, you know, Gresham was another one where the Bob Clark, the bass player, was kind of the founder of it. And the guy I worked with, he passed away before the record came out. And I kind of get the feeling what the era I'm working in, the people working, it's going to happen again and again and again. So now I have this other thing where it's like, okay, my mission is also to be as true to these people's vision as I possibly can be. And I'm lucky that Greg and I have this year-long kind of conversation going about it. So I feel like I can understand what he wants, but that's a huge one. And then the last record that comes out this year for us will be 7 Seconds New Wind. It's going to have something so fucking mind-blowing and special that I can't reveal, but I'm telling you guys, get ready for that record because the extra thing on that is going to blow people's minds. I'll tell you off camera. I will tell you off the recording what's happening because you'll be stoked.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, look, Kevin and I have kind of done this dance. I've wanted him to come on the show. So maybe this is a good excuse.
He should be on.
This is a good excuse for him when this announcement's ready. Actually.
Yeah. That record comes out. That'll be an October release with maybe a November ship. We'll get that. We'll get him on there because he'll want to talk about that. I'll tell you after this, and it's really exciting. And then, like I said, like we're trying to get to 8 to 10 records a year. So we're working on a schedule next year. I mentioned SNFU. There's what else I got? I got Royal Crown Review record, which is on Be Well, coming out probably next summer. And then there'll be some really, hopefully, knock on wood, cool stuff that is not quite done, but we're looking to take some big swings on bands that are like the transcendent bands of our genre. Not to say that Circle Jerks and SSD are not, they are, but bands that are like that'll top level bands. It won't be Minor Threat.
So up to this point, it's been reissues.
Yeah.
And I think the Descendents Circle Jerk single was the first time you've done original music. Is that correct? Well, hey there, record collectors. There's a new service available that specializes in record cleaning, restoring, sticker removal, and professional grading.
VMGvinyl.com.
VMG Vinyl can help you make the most of your collectible records. From professional cleaning of records and sleeves,
Removing old price tags and store stickers.
dry cleaning and rejuvenation of old shrink wrap to make it look like new, even providing you a professional play-tested third-party grade with either removable grading or encasing in plastic. You have a wide range of choices at vmgvinyl.com.
Buying a highly collectible record and you want it checked out by an expert?
VMG Vinyl can do that too. Head over there now and see what vmgvinyl.com can do for you and your collection. That's vmgvinyl.com, the one-stop shop for professional third-party grading, cleaning, and record restoration. That's vmgvinyl.com. Hey there, I gotta tell you about the Groove Washer. Not because I have to, but because I want to. The Groove Washer is the best record cleaner you can get. And if you have a vinyl collection, you need to keep it clean. Dirt and dust lead to groove wear, which affects the sound and value of your record collection. Use the Groove Washer to clean before each play, and your ears and future pocketbook will thank you. Ask for the Groove Washer by name at your local record store, or go direct to groovewasher.com and use promo code VinylGuide10 at checkout. Groove Washer is a great holiday gift. Why not send one to a friend? groovewasher.com, discount code VinylGuide10. Do it now. Up to this point, it's been reissues.
Yeah.
And I think the Descendents Circle Jerk single was the first time you've done original music. Is that correct?
Yeah. So that's been a discussion we've had. Like, we want to be true to our mission statement, which is like I said, it's a folkways model. It's a preservation label. Historic. We look at it more of a historical label. Honor that. So we don't look at putting out new bands, new music. What happened was I really wanted to put out the Descendents on Trust. And Bill and Milo and I had multiple conversations last year. And we never got that done. Not because of any, just where they're at, kind of to your point, when getting their masters back after all these years. I feel them on that. Like, they're not ready for that type of deal. And we almost did a licensing deal with them, which would have broke our kind of model. And at the last second kind of pulled it, because we're like, now we can't do it. Because then we'll stay true to us, hopefully work with you guys again. But we have these great conversations. And part of what we're doing is we're very invested in this Circle Jerks Descendants tour that's been going around now. They're having it's an amazing tour. Just if you can see it, it comes to your town. People have to go see it because both bands are on their A game. Usually the opener's like an Adolescence or Negative Approach or TSO. So it's just a great package. They wanted to cover each other's songs. They had this idea for like a tour 7-inch. And I was like, and they asked us to do it. I was like, yeah, sure. It doesn't have a barcode on it. It doesn't have a Trust Records number to it. It's just a thing. You know what I mean? And you can get it. We sold it through our online stores and we sell it at the shows. And that was really fun. And I was like, we could probably do more of those type of looks, that as long as they kind of made sense with who we are, because they don't really, they're almost like, when Discord used to do these half releases where they would do they had like their catalog, but then they would do like a Necros release. It would be like a half, because Necros was a DC band. So I started looking at like that model. Like, yeah, sure. We'll just do like these kind of one-off little projects that'll be fun and people, it works. It partners us with the Descendants in a way that I want to be partners with them. So, and you'll see more of those 7-inches. We've talked about some interesting live record ideas next year. That would be kind of the same spirit, like just stuff that won't be available for streaming. You can't buy it in a record store. You can go buy it at the show. Like a really cool like tour item.
So this single
and buy it on Discogs.
Oh, yeah. So this single, and I was actually very lucky enough to get one. And it literally arrived yesterday. I'm in Australia, right? So it took a while to get here, and the only way I was able to get it is because it went on sale at some ungodly hour, and I just happened to be awake and I snagged it. So it seems to me a lot of the Trust records tend to sell out very quick. I missed the Youth Brigade Sounds and Fury Deluxe Edition. I got this one.
I got you.
Oh yeah. Oh, well, fucking that'd be great.
Yeah.
So
No
for SSD, that's another one. Like it went on, it sold out, and you can't even find one of those fucking things. Are you doing represses, or what's kind of the?
We're gonna do a repress of Kids Will Have Their Say that'll be available when we re-release Get It Away, the second record. So that's a good. It's a good. Like I said, this is a learning exercise too. It's a constantly evolving, shape-shifting type of label because you're doing things for the first time in 40 years, right? Like, so with SSD, Kids Will Have Their Say, like that's me and Al Baril, we've had conversation. I've been talking to Al Baril for 4 years about SSD still. I mean, we're talking every day, but we talked for like 2-3 years solidly before we ever did the SSD deal. The SSD record, Kids Will Have Their Say, there was 1,900 copies. It sold out. They pressed it one time in 1982. They were going for about $2,000 on Discogs for a clean copy. So we were doing that. And like I said, they put out this book. So we couldn't do all the bells and whistles. And Al was I kind of got his vibe. And I consulted with people like Ian as well. Like, maybe this is a straight repress. Like, maybe this is the one where it's like, okay, we got to just be true to like the original form. Let's make it as true to the original as we can. Remaster it so it sounds great. And see what happens. And then we started, I had this idea that I really wanted that record to chart with the vinyl charts for Billboard for just kind of, I knew it would kind of tickle Al a little bit. Like, I don't care about that shit, but I'm like, it'd be kind of fun if we could get SSD.
Look, you're part of the establishment now.
Yeah. Like, I want it to be like number 20 on the Billboard vinyl charts. It was, I forget what it was. It charted, but not that high. But so the idea was, okay, like all these record stores have always come to us and asked for their own pressings. And I get it. Independent record stores, their lifeblood is vinyl now in their life, and they need something unique to their store. And we've kind of kept people at bay with that. We've had different colors, different variants for different, streams. Like independent record stores had this one color, majors had this, whatever. So with SSD, I was like, well, fuck it. Let's go and make all kinds of colors. Let's see what happens. Like, let's just see what this does. I'm trying to stay away from being a collectible. It's not really our mission to be like, hey, we're making collectible records immediately, but we did. Like with SSD, Brian Ray Turcotte had the most amazing idea, which was to reverse the color scheme. It's a black and white record. Let's make it a white record.
That was Brian's idea. Okay.
Oh God. And I was like, man, it looks really, I was like, man, this looks so cool. So then we did that. And we had I think we have 12 different color variants, but we only had 2 covers. And then right before we're going to press, Al goes, oh, by the way, years ago on Facebook, I made an X-Claim Records Club. And I said, whenever we release it, you guys will get a special SSD color. Can we do that? And we're like, sure. So we kind of tweaked that a little bit. It has like gold lettering and some little Easter eggs in there. Anyway, we had no idea how that would sell. Like I was, we were like, okay, hopefully we'll sell out. We're going to announce this a month before the street date. My idea is always like on street date, we're all going to turn our sales and chart these guys on Billboard for the first time. And those records sold out in 26 minutes. Ours. Like, it was insane, the feeding frenzy. And it was insane to me, like that white album I'm describing, that thing was gone within 5 minutes. I could see, I logged on to our online store, the back end of our online store. On a normal release day with a normal record, there might be 200 people waiting in the queue, to go, which is like, that's great. I'm like, great, this is going to be a great day. There was like 700, 800 people in the queue. It was like 780 people in the queue before we turned it on. I was like, oh, this will be interesting. And it was just gone. And we were like, then we were pulling, and then we went to emergency repress because we just didn't know. And I didn't want to be like, I mentioned at the beginning is we started this record label in a pandemic. And the problem we had with that is we had really skewed numbers on our analytics because pandemic numbers were up 40% in vinyl, and to press vinyl at the time because of the supply shortage was taking a year. So when we pressed the Circle Jerks Group Sex, Wild in the Streets, and 7 Seconds to Crew, we overpressed thinking we need to get 2 years worth of pressings in there, and that stung a little bit because we're like, oh shit, like we really overshot our numbers. So with SSD, I was like, what I don't want to do is press, say, like 15,000 records to try. I'll be sitting on them. We pressed what we thought would work. It was about 8,000 and they sold out. So it'll be, but that's great. I mean, that's a great problem. It's a testament to the band, the testament to, kind of that genre that we're in where kids cared about it. But what blows my mind is when I see on the Instagram, someone's got all 12 and they post the grid. I've seen about 20 of those they've collected every single variant from all these different record stores and places to get it. It's interesting. I'll probably do the same thing for Get It Away just to seem like it works for them. But it doesn't work for everybody.
Does that bring you satisfaction doing that? Because I know you didn't set out to make it collectible, but now you have people that are buying all these, trying to collect them all. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, I think it's not really. When we started this label, it was really concentrated on the streaming numbers because we were looking at it more of like, what's going to happen to Circle Jerks and SSD and these bands as we move away from physical vinyl? It gets all digital, like for better, I mean, for worse for me, but like, you know what I mean? Like we just looked at like, that's the world. How do we kind of worry about streaming? And we looked at those records almost as like, well, we have to have something to talk about and celebrate because no one wants to celebrate fucking, well, there's a new stream on Spotify. It's depressing. Yeah. So we'll make these packages and that'll be kind of our marketing thing. That'll be things people talk about. And then as we were doing it, it was really heartwarming and satisfying to me to see how much people love vinyl still and how what we sit in a space where the records we are championing, people want to collect the vinyl. And I know it tickles Al, the white SSD record, the fact that we made a collectible record by accident, kind of like, you know what I mean? Like I figured those would be it'd take a week to sell those because like, nope, people collect it. I want to be cautious with that. I don't want to do things with that as my kind of goal. But I want to help the independent record stores and I want to make different variants. I do understand that part of the business and it is satisfying, but get ready. There's 2 more variants coming out of that record, kids. So you don't have them all yet.
One with the green sky. Okay. I'm not sure I've seen many or any Trust Records CDs or cassettes or anything like that. So it's pretty much physical form. You're pretty much limited to vinyl. Is that true?
Well, we did make CDs for both Circle Jerk records. They're a box CD with the booklet in a short form. It's weird because I look at the records like books, like almost like art books. So when you're looking at a Glennie Friedman photo that's 12 by 12, it's powerful, right? You're looking at when you're seeing these flyers that are blown up, and you're reading this. It's like that resonates. It's hard to get that kind of message. It's kind of hard to get that aesthetic across through a cassette, right? Like because cassettes almost like novel to me. I think for SSD, we're gonna make cassettes on this next release, and for kids will have their say, just because people still want them. And that record, we never did the bells and whistles on like we did the others. So it won't be as weird for me to be like, well, here's a cassette. It's not really what we're about. Right. I try to, like I said, back in the beginning, like if the artist wants to do it, we're going to do it. It's not, I don't look at cassettes and CDs as great formats to celebrate the art. Like in my mind, it's like, if you want to listen to a CD, then go listen to Spotify or Apple Music.
Well, I think those 2 formats were more designed for portability. Right.
Yeah.
And so now you have 100%. Streaming that trumps both of those easily. But so yeah, I can see where you'd be.
I'm not opposed to it. Like we've done it and we are doing cassettes, but I think it's like when you have conversations about say cassettes, it gets into this weird marketing thing. Like, well, it's more of like a marketing thing. Like you get the limited edition cassette as a pre-order. And then I want to be very careful that we're not so consumer minded that we're always like, what's the add-ons? What's the bundle we can make? I want to just be true to the art as much as possible.
Now,
the music.
I've noticed on a few releases you have singles 7 inches in some of the pressings and some of them in not. What's the thinking and strategy around that?
Yeah, as I just contradicted myself. Well, that's kind of the marketing tool. We were looking at, it really happened with 7 Seconds. So 7 Seconds, they had a session before they released The Crew that I think it's come out on a CD that they did, but it's hard to find. And I really wanted to make a double record of that, where it was like The Crew, and then we call it the United We Stand sessions. It's like, that's their 83 recording, Crew's 84. And Kevin was like, he didn't like it. He didn't like the idea, but he wasn't opposed to a 7-inch. So we were like, okay, we'll do a fun little 7-inch and slide it in. We did it with Aggression because a guy named Fred Hammer, who does a label in Oxnard, he was helping with that. And he had a live recording, and he was like, can we stick in it's really his 7-inch that we made for him. And I was like, yeah, that's kind of fun. That celebrates kind of Oxnard to have like this, this random Aggression live 7-inch. It's like very, the Oxnard bands are very, if you know Mystic Records, their vibe has always been a little bit like that kind of vibe where it's just like cover songs and live versions on an album with recorded music. So it kind of made sense in the spirit of it. And then when we came to Walk Together, Rock Together, that session was recorded inner ear with Don and Ian, and they had recorded 2 extra songs, Regressing Away and We're Gonna Fight, that went on comps. They went on the Puss Head comp, I think, Cleanse the Bacteria. And they're to me, they're the best songs on that recording session. So I wanted them, but then we were like, we wanted to stay true to the original EP, which didn't have them. So we stuck those in as the D2C kind of extra. And I think we'll probably move away with that. What I've learned what's happened with that is if they kind of warp the records, they're not a great packaging thing. Like it's like they can kind of mess with the records, and maybe we'll do it. I mean, like, I'm not ruling out anything, but like now I'd like to do more like double albums and stuff with that stuff, and have just more extra shit, and then just make like kind of what we're saying, and why that's more of D2C, the direct to consumer model, which is our online store, the band's online store, is there's different price points. So we've kind of gotten this idea that, okay, not everyone, we kind of were underselling those records. So some of these records have to be like probably $35-$40 if they're going to be a double record. That's not for everybody. So we're like, what if we did this? What if we had one version that has everything? We'll still make it all available in the digital world. And then if you go into a record store, it's just the original. It'll have the book and stuff, but it just won't have that extra record. And you can buy that for $20. You can get that record. So you can have both options if you're because it's like, it's not for everyone, those collectibles. Like, I get emails all the time when we put out like the 7 Seconds record with the price point was like $33 or $35, which it's fair. If you see, it's a gatefold with a 20-page book. Kids were complaining. They're like, we just want like is it cheaper? And I'm like, it can be, but then, it's the dance we do. Like, we want to make everyone happy. You can't make everyone happy. So if the fans want one thing and the band wants one thing and we see it a different way, like, we're still trying to find that sweet spot.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you'll never be able to satisfy everyone.
No, we won't. But
but you're doing you're doing a damn good effort for it. So talk to me a little bit, since we're talking about extra stuff, this Youth Brigade, the Sound of Fury Deluxe Edition. There's the old original recording of the album included in that. Is that the first time on vinyl for that, right?
Sort of. So basically, the Youth Brigade Sound of Fury, we inherited that from BYO. And those who don't know, so Sean Stern and Mark Stern, who were the founders of BYO, Youth Brigade is their band. They're huge players in punk rock worldwide. They're the original. I mean, they're just like extraordinary human beings in the way they put on shows. The cookie cutter example of DIY ethics, right? They recorded this record, Sound and Fury, in 1982. They go on the tour. It's a famous tour. It's the Another State of Mind tour. There's a movie about it. Social Distortion, Youth Brigade. They're on this tour. They get the record on tour. They hate it. They think it sucks. And by then they'd written all these new songs that they liked. So they just go, they make 800 of those, sell them, don't repress it, come back to LA, re-record a new version of the record called Sound and Fury with different art, put that out. That's the one that has to sync with California and,
okay.
So that's how that happens. So that becomes a record everyone knows. There's people, but it didn't exist really. The 1983 version that exists. Now what happens is when CDs come into play, they change the artwork quite to like this. It's like a guy with a mohawk and a flag, and they change the name of the record to sync with California. They do all this stuff that kind of goes against our thinking So when we took that over, I said to Sean and Mark, I go, well, I want to restore this record to its original artwork. I want to get it back to that. It's such a great looking record. It's so classic. And should we put out the original as well? And they're like, well, the original is not, they don't want it. So this is kind of where I was talking about earlier. We got into this idea. It's like, okay, we'll put the original back in its format, lyric sheet, photo, like the whole bells and whistles, that hasn't been seen since like the mid 80s, because it's been like this other format, right? That'll be the retail version. And then what we'll do is we'll make a deluxe book. It'll be 60, 70 page hardbound book with both records in it. That'll be the Uber collector thing. We'll make 500 of those and we'll see how it sells. And I pre-ordered that way in advance because I didn't know Youth Brigade is not the same as Circle Jerks. I don't know what they're going to do, right? Because it's like, I kind of knew what Circle Jerks going to do. I know what 7 Seconds can do. I know what SSD is going to do, sort of. Have no idea. So we put that as a pre-order, and the minimum is 500 to make this book. A couple hundred sold, right? So it's 250, maybe we're almost to 300 before we had to go to press. I'm like, all right, well, this is going to be a dud. So we'll make 500, put it out. The minute that book, we didn't sell them out, it ships. The minute people started showing that book on Instagram, it was, those other 200 copies were gone within a week. Because it was one of those things like, oh shit, I have to have that. So that was I don't really know the lesson I learned from that because it's like, it sort of worked. We'll probably do more of that kind of stuff. Like make like these really limited edition deluxe books and then have something in between that maybe has like the books kind of slipped in a soft cover format or something. But it was it's a really cool package. I'm definitely going to send you one because I'm really proud of it. I think, that's one of those things where Glennie Friedman came through like a champ and gave us proof sheets. I mean, he gave us his proof sheet when he shot these photos of all these guys on the bus for Someone Got Their Head Kicked In comp, which is another BOL release. But they're just classic photos. And it's like, here's 18 photos in a proof sheet that he's never shown anyone. Let us have that. Like those are the kind of things where I'm like, okay, we're doing really good work here because here's something that's historically important. Glennie Friedman's proof sheet from this session, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, Matt, I would absolutely love that because I was never able to afford that first version. Because it's like $500-600 now or something like that. So
yeah, and that's one of those things that we kind of wanted to put that out. That's kind of why the book came to place because Sean was like, no, I don't want that to be like a part of it. Because we'll just put both records out. And so I was like, okay, well, can we do this? Because no one's ever seen it. And like they did release it as a CD called Out of Print, but it's not remastered. You know what I mean? Like it's not, it's fine, but it's like they basically just took that same recording that they hated in 82 and put the same recording. I was like, well, fuck, we're at least going to remaster that thing and make it sound good. Yeah, I think it's special. I think a lot of people have commented to Matt and I that that's their favorite release aesthetically. So that resonates with us.
So not too long ago, I had a conversation with Jim Rulin, who you probably know.
Yeah.
And we talked about what would ever happen to SST records. And I'm sure that's a phone.
Whale, isn't it?
I'm sure that's a phone number you've dialed several times.
I've had conversations. Yeah.
Yeah.
What does happen to SST? I know.
I don't know. What's your prediction of what could happen there?
Well, look, here's what I know is one of the bands we talked about, Matt and I, at the end of the year of trying to get their catalog was the Dead Kennedys. And we were like, they're estranged. It's what we just talked about. Obviously, I don't have people figure this out. Jello and the band is estranged. So I was like, all right, we'll start working on it. And then they sold everything, IP publishing, 100% of everything to a company called Gold Star for $7.5 million, right? That just happened. And that was kind of shocking to us and also kind of woke us up to like, oh shit, like now there's these outside players going and buying assets for a portfolio. Dead Kennedys makes sense. That makes sense for a portfolio catalog. That's a classic American band. It'll always be classic. If Holiday in Cambodia is a hit song, I don't care what music you're into. I could see Black Flag and SST having that exit strategy. I don't, Greg Ginn, I don't know him. I know a guy named Evan Cohen, who's his attorney, and Evan and I are friendly. I like Evan. Like he's a controversial player in this whole thing. We've had those conversations. I think it's Greg Ginn comes across, and in Jim Rulin's book, I said this to Jim, I went into that book and came out with a more positive outlook on Greg Ginn and SST because I already knew all the other shit. What I didn't get, which Jim really kind of pulled out intentionally or not, was Greg Ginn's mindset of being forward thinking, whatever his deal is with his, so like he doesn't look at it the way everyone else looks at it. He's looking at this like, you know, it's his transistor radio company. Then it became a label, and then Black Flag. You know, he doesn't look at it. He doesn't. And I'm not defending any bad behaviors, but I understood him better. It's like, okay, this dude doesn't see it the way everyone else is seeing. He's not looking at legacy. He's not looking at it like he's moved on. Yeah, he's doing Black Flag legacy shows now. That's one thing. But like, I would think eventually they would want to sell it. They know. I had dinner with their attorney 6 weeks ago, and I said, don't ever sell this without talking to me. And he said I'd be the second call he makes. So I don't know who the first call is, but long on the top three, because we would be perfect for it. But that's a weird thing too, because Black Flag to me like needs so much treatment and love, and all those records, my God, they need to be remastered in the worst way. Could you imagine doing damaged box set books with all those great photos and all the outtakes? There's all those Des Cadena outtakes. That's that second. I mean, it'd be a dream. I don't know if we'll get there. I don't know what the exit strategy is. I guess, you know, there is none. I think, like I said, I think Greg's such a forward thinker. I don't think he thinks about legacy or estate planning or any of it. So I don't know. But I think that Dead Kennedys deal is probably perked up some interest. How could it not? Because why would you not? If you don't care, why would you not? Go, sure. I mean, they wouldn't get 7 million, but fuck, they get like 4, you know, why not? They're not doing anything with it.
Well, for the entire SST catalog, there's a lot
there's
more.
Not, but I think there's not a lot left on it. You know what I mean? Like, I think you got the Minutemen. I think you got, you know, all the Greg Ginn side projects and Black Flag. I don't think they have a lot. I know they don't have Descendents anymore. They don't have, I don't know what the Husker deal is. You know what I mean? Like, I mean, what a fuck, man. That is one of the greatest labels ever created in the history of music. And what a sad story that it just all kind of fell apart. But like I said, I kind of get Greg Ginn. I kind of get where he's like, he doesn't give a fuck. He's just like, what? I was doing transistor radios. What? Oh yeah, my records. Yeah, I did that too. Now I'm out there. You know, he's doing things. He had his cat stuff, and now he has like a manure company, I think, or something out in Texas. He runs like, he's just that dude. He's an eccentric fucking dude. You know.
Let's hope your phone rings on that soon.
I hope so. We'll keep that. I haven't given up. I'm never giving up on Black Flag and SST, because that is like the white whale of what we're doing. Like that is the. Be amazing.
So Joe, I'm getting ready to wrap up. Is there anything you want to talk about we haven't talked about?
No, I mean, first of all, thank you for the time. Like I'm available to you anytime. I love your podcast. I listen to it constantly, and I'm just such a fan of people's kind of journeys into kind of vinyl and how it all kind of sits in our world. I appreciate all the support. I think we're gonna have, like I said, there's gonna be some really great shit happening next year, 2025. We're taking Trust Records to a new level where I hope to really kind of impress some people. We'll see.
You've impressed plenty, but we're keen to see what else you got.
Yeah, we got some tricks up our sleeve.
Okay, Joe, thanks for coming on the Vinyl Guy again. I can't express enough how much respect I have for the work that Trust is doing, the releases that are coming out, and it's pretty much a label where, to me, it's almost like Blue Note. Whatever they come out with is almost an instant classic. You just grab it because the people behind it are you trust. No pun intended. No, yeah, I didn't mean to be weird there, but but yeah, I want to recommend to everyone, if you don't already, follow Trust on social media. I think it's trustrecordcompany.com. Yep. And be aware when there's a release, and put a calendar date or a reminder in your phone or something, because they tend to go quick, as we've talked about. So you want to get in there and get some of these releases once they're announced. Joe, again, You're always welcome back on the show. And mate, again, I'm heading to LA in a couple of weeks, so hopefully we can maybe even connect over a taco. Yeah,
I would love to meet with you personally for sure.
Cool. Man, fascinating. Look for the announcements of those upcoming titles and more. There's lots of good stuff on the way from Trust Records. Oh, and by the way, there's an extended version of this interview only available to show patrons. Patreon.com/Vinyl Guide. Head up there now. Help support your buddy Nate and his show, and that is much appreciated. And that's it for this episode of The Vinyl Guide. A huge thanks to everyone who's sharing these episodes on social media, putting them in the Reddit forums and the Facebook groups. That's a huge help. And big ups to everyone who's leaving positive reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, giving us 5 out of 5 stars, saying something nice. That is hugely appreciated. And we'll be back shortly with a brand new episode. So until we talk next time, get out there and buy some records, people. Cheers.